Part 24. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 231. As soon as the words came out, not only Fu Xuanyi was stunned, but Hebrew and others were also stunned. Everyone looked at Wei Yuxian on the bed to see if she was joking, but the confusion on her face didn't seem fake. So, she lost her memory. Fu Xuanyi squeezed the hand on the bed hard, gritted his back molars, and asked, "Don't you remember me, darling?" Wei Yuxian opened her big eyes, shook her head, and asked, "Who are you?" Fu Xuanyi's heart was severely hit. Broken to pieces. Here, Hebrew and others also had complicated moods. Looking at Fu Xuanyi's sad expression, they didn't know what to say to comfort him. Among the people present, only Fu Xuanyi was the saddest, because he was the only person I knew at the scene. But now, I have lost my memory. How sad is Fu Xuanyi? At this time, Wei Qiuowen asked, "Eucalyptus, do you really don't remember who he is?" His voice was very gentle, fearing that a harsher tone would scare his little baby. Wei Yuxian turned her head and looked to the other side. There were more people on this side, and two of them were foreigners. She looked at them and felt that they were very strange. She didn't recognize them. "Who are you? Where am I?" Wei Yuxian's mind was confused and she couldn't tell the difference at all. She tried to think about who these people were and what this place was, but as soon as she started thinking about it, her head started to hurt. She held her head with both hands, her face wrinkled up in pain, and said, "My head hurts so much." Wei Qiuowen also quickly protected her head with his hands and said, "Don't think about it. If you can't remember it, stop thinking about it. If you don't think about it, your head won't hurt. Be good." Wei Yuxian did as he said and found that her head really didn't hurt anymore. A smile appeared on her face and she said, "It really doesn't hurt anymore." Fu Xuanyi felt that something was wrong with Wei Yuxian at the moment. She seemed not only to have lost her memory, but her IQ also seemed to have become that of a child. This could be seen from the way she spoke. Hebrew and others also discovered this problem. Wei Yuxian's current behavior is no different from that of a child. Kylie had already called the doctor when he realized something was wrong. At that moment, the doctor knocked on the door. The dean came in with several doctors and nurses, and also pushed a small cart with many things on it. When Wei Yuxian saw these people, she felt a little scared. She grabbed the hand of Wei Qiuowen next to her and asked for help. Although she didn't know who this person was, she had a good impression of him from the bottom of her heart. She felt that this person would never hurt her and would be very nice to her. As for the uncle who was the first to talk to her just now, even though he wouldn't hurt herself, his face looked so fierce. Also, she thinks this uncle is so handsome. She secretly took a look at the uncle again and found that he was even more handsome. Wei Qiuowen comforted her and said, "Don't be afraid. The doctor is just checking your body and won't hurt you." Wei Yuxian was still a little scared and asked, "Really? Are my uncle and aunt really not going to hurt me?" Wei Qiuowen promised, "Dad promises that they will not hurt you. If they hurt you, Dad will be the first to protect you." Only then did Wei Yuxian agree to let the doctor check her body. The doctors and nurses examined Wei Yuxian's body thoroughly, then asked her some questions, and then gave her a conclusion. Miss Wei suffered a heavy blow to her head and may suffer from amnesia. Moreover, Miss Wei's current IQ is only 6 years old, but there is nothing wrong with Miss Wei's body. Fu Xuanyi stared closely at the doctor who was speaking. Every time the latter said a word, his heart beat sharply. "Guiguai, I really have lost my memory and don't remember him." She forgot everything, including that they were married, that they had 2 children, and that they had been together day and night. After the doctor checked and explained the situation clearly, he left the ward, leaving space for them. Wei Qiuowen reached out and touched her face and asked, "Eucalyptus, Do you still remember your name? Wei Yuxian naturally knew about this, and she quickly said, I know. My name is Wei Yuxian. Apart from this, she didn't remember anyone, but she still remembered some common sense of life. Wei Qiuan looked at Fu Xuanyi's uncomfortable expression over there, sighed inwardly, and said, Euclidean, I am Dad, this is your uncle, this is eldest brother, and this. He pointed to Wei Yuxian one by one to identify them. When he found out who Fu Xuanyi was, he paused, and then continued, he is your husband, Fu Xuanyi. Wei Qiuan never thought of erasing Fu Xuanyi's identity. He was indeed her husband. If it hadn't been for him at the time, Eucalyptus wouldn't be living so well now, and he wouldn't have the chance to see Eucalyptus again. When Wei Yuxian heard what her father said, her eyes widened and she looked at Fu Xuanyi in disbelief. She can accept that her father is her father because she has an intuition that this man is her father and he did not lie to her. She can also accept her uncle and eldest brother, because they are family members, and she can accept them quickly. But Dad said, this good-looking uncle is her husband. Wei Yuxian's face immediately turned red. She was too shy to look at Fu Xuanyi. She stood up and leaned into her father's ear and asked, Dad, is there no money at home? Do you want to sell me to Uncle Handsome? She thought she spoke so quietly that only her father could hear her, but in fact, everyone present heard her. For a moment, no one knew what to say. Even Fu Xuanyi was not in such a bad mood after hearing this. Although Guai had forgotten him, Guai didn't hate him. His little face was red, and he looked shy at first glance. So, Guai likes him now, right? Thinking of this, Fu Xuanyi's mood immediately improved a lot. As long as Guai doesn't hate him or alienate him, then if he loses his memory, he will lose his memory. In the future, Guai will definitely think of him again, he believes. If Guai likes him so much, how could he be willing to really forget about him? Dr. Cai also said just now that Guai will recover his memory, but the time is uncertain, but one thing is certain, it won't be long. During this time, maybe he could see a different Guai. He also wanted to know how cute Guai could be when he was a child. Wei Qiuan smiled softly and wanted to touch her hair, but saw that her head was wrapped with gauze, so he held back and said, No, my family is rich, and my father didn't sell you. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 232. Hearing this, Wei Yuxian secretly glanced at Fu Xuanyi again, her little face seemed to be even redder, and she asked in a low voice, Then why did Dad say that handsome uncle is mine? The shy little Wei Yuxian couldn't say that title. She felt like her face would be on fire if she said it. Wei Qiuan also glanced at Fu Xuanyi, and seeing that his face was finally not so ugly, he asked Wei Yuxian, Do you like him? Wei Yuxian glanced at the people around her and found that everyone's eyes were on her. She felt shy and wanted to hide under the quilt to prevent everyone from seeing her red face. She was embarrassed to say it, so she put her arms around her father's neck and said, Don't say it. She really regarded herself as a child, hugging her father's neck and not letting go, feeling very attached to him. Wei Qiuan knew that she was shy, so he whispered, How about just telling Dad? Dad won't tell anyone else. Wei Yuxian raised her head from her father's shoulders, looked at her father with her big eyes, and after a while, like a shy little rabbit, she nudged closer to her father's ear. She said, I like handsome uncle. The smile on Wei Qiuan's face became happier and he nodded to Fu Xuanyi. He was very satisfied with Fu Xuanyi as his son-in-law and did not want to have another son-in-law. Fu Xuanyi couldn't help but bring a smile to his lips, and his heart melted when he looked at Wei Yuxian's back. Guai still likes him, that's enough. He will always stay by Guai's side, protecting her and not letting others take advantage of her. The obedient can only be his, and he can only be obedient. In this life, no third person will be able to interfere with them. Wei Kuowen felt his daughter's attachment to him and felt very happy. He hoped that time could stay at this moment and that the father and daughter would never be separated. But this is impossible. When his daughter grows up and has a husband, as a father, he naturally wants to see his daughter happy. He asked with some reluctance, "Then do you want to go home with your handsome uncle?" Wei Yuxian shook her head and said, "You're only 6 years old. You can't get married. You can't get married until you grow up. You have to live with your father." After a while, she whispered again, "But, handsome uncle can come to live with us. I also want to see handsome uncle every day." Wei Kuowen thought his daughter's idea was a good one. Fu Xuanyi could temporarily stay with the Jones family so that he could develop a relationship with Fu Xuanyi. He agreed and said, "Okay, how about you tell Uncle Handsome yourself?" He patted her back to give her some courage. Wei Yuxian coquettishly said to her father, "No, no, Dad can help me." When she acted coquettishly, Wei Guo's heart melted, and he wished he could hold the stars and the moon in front of her. But it would be better for her to tell her personally about this matter, so as to strengthen her courage and make her not so shy in front of Fu Xuanyi. He said, "You said it yourself, it was you who wanted Uncle Shui to move in, right? You have to do your own thing." Wei Yuxian could only lift her head from her father's arms again, looking at her father pitifully, hoping that he could help her. Wei Kuowen almost couldn't help but wanted to help her, but in the end he resisted the temptation, closed his mouth tightly, and looked at her with encouraging eyes. Wei Yuxian was inspired and felt more strength in her heart. She clenched her fists and encouraged herself in her heart, with a serious expression on her face. She took a deep breath, finally dared to look at Fu Xuanyi, and asked, handsome uncle, do you want to go home with me?" Fu Xuanyi asked, "Guai, do you want me to go home with you?" Wei Yuxian's serious expression suddenly became unbearable, and she became shy again, saying, "I want to." "Okay, I'll go home with you." Wei Yuxian was extremely happy. She looked at the handsome Fu Xuanyi with a strange look on her face. After looking at it for a while, she shared with her father with a silly smile, "Dad, my handsome uncle said to come home with me." "Yeah, Dad heard it." "Then when are we going home?" "When the doctor uncle says it's okay to go home, we can go home." "Then when does the doctor uncle say you can go home?" "Dad doesn't know either." Wei Yuxian's little face shrank and her mouth pursed. Her little expression was so cute that she made everyone present cute. Especially Fu Xuanyi. "I really want to hold him in my arms right now and love him so much." Where had he seen Guai look so cute before? This was the time, he had to remember how Guai looked at this moment so that he could recall and miss her in the future. It's just, I keep calling him handsome uncle. Does he look that old? He and Kylie are obviously about the same age. They call Kylie brother but uncle. No, I have to correct the name Guai and let her call her brother. When he thought of this title, Fu Xuanyi's eyes narrowed dangerously. He looked at Wei Yuxian's back and wanted to eat her up. The innocent Wei Yuxian did not notice the danger, but chatted with her father, "Dad, where is Mom? Why didn't I see Mom? Did Mom buy something delicious for her?" Wei Kuowen and everyone present paused for a moment, looked at each other, and no one spoke. Wei Yuxian didn't notice anything was wrong in the atmosphere at all. Her current IQ was only 6 years old, and her insight was not that strong. "Dad, why don't you speak? Tell me where Mother is." Wei Kuowen adjusted his mood, thought for a moment, and said, "Mom went to work far away to make money, and she is not at home now." "Then when will Mother come back? I want to know what Mother looks like." "After a year, Mom will come back." He took out his phone, found the old photos he took with Lin Xia, and said, "This is Mom, let's see if Mom is beautiful." Wei Yuxian looked at the beauty in the photo, her eyes widened, and said, "Mom is so beautiful. I want to be as beautiful as my mother. Eucalyptus is also very beautiful as mother." "Really? Is Eucalyptus as beautiful as Mom?" "Dad didn't lie." Wei Qiuan nodded and said, "Dad didn't lie. He is just good looking. If you don't believe me, ask your uncle and handsome uncle." Wei Yuxian really went to ask. First she asked her uncle and brother, and finally she asked Fu Xuanyi. She was so shy when she asked, and all the answers she got were in the affirmative, which made her very happy. It had been a while since she woke up. After chatting with everyone for so long, she felt a little depressed. She yawned and said, "I'm so sleepy. I need to go to sleep." Wei Qiuan supported her, let her lie down on her side, and said, "Go to sleep, Dad will always be by your side, and so will your handsome uncle." Wei Yuxian glanced at Fu Xuanyi with a somewhat expectant look in her eyes. After seeing him nod, she curled her lips and started to sleep. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 233. The room became quiet again, and everyone consciously said nothing and did not disturb the little princess sleeping on the bed. The person on the bed now is the real little princess, the only little princess of their Jones family, and the apple of the Fu family's eye. Fu Xuanyi waited until she fell asleep before he dared to reach out and take her hand. It was soft and tender, just like before, and it was still the touch he liked. "Be good, sleep peacefully, your husband will always be with you, no one can hurt you, I will never allow it." Not long after Wei Yuxian fell asleep, there was a knock on the door of the room again. Kylie got up to open the door, and then saw that the entire Jones family was here. His grandmother, mother, second uncle and second aunt, second brother, third brother, fourth brother and fifth brother, second brother and sister, fourth brother and sister, and their children all came together. He took a deep breath and whispered, "My sister is asleep, let's be quiet." Hearing this, the whole family even breathed softly, and the two babies in their arms stopped kicking their little feet. Everyone became quiet, and Kylie let them go inside. Everyone's steps were so light. As soon as they entered, they stretched their necks to see Wei Yuxian on the hospital bed, but Wei Yuxian's back was turned to them. No matter how long they stretched their necks, they could not see Wei Yuxian's face. Kylie supported his grandma and took her to see Wei Yuxian's face first. Grandma is over 80 this year. She is in good health and is an Oriental. "Is this Eucalyptus?" Grandma asked in a low voice. Kylie nodded and said, "Yes, this is Eucalyptus, the only little princess in our family." Wei Yuxian is indeed the only little princess in the Jones family, because her grandmother did not give birth to an aunt for her, only her eldest, second uncle and her father. The eldest uncle gave birth to the eldest brother and the second brother, and the second uncle gave birth to the third brother, the fourth brother and the fifth brother. In her generation, only the second brother and the fourth brother were married, and they had a son but no daughter. The Jones family desperately wanted a little princess, but they just couldn't get it. God seems to despise their family having a daughter. Now, their family finally has their own little princess, and they no longer have to envy other people's families. The Jones family was so happy that they quickly ran to the opposite side of Wei Yuxian and looked at her face curiously. Picture. So similar. She looks so much like the aunt my uncle drew. This must be my uncle's biological daughter, their sister. The paternity test certificate has come out, and the DNA cannot be faked. They really have a sister. Several elder brothers and fifth brothers took out their mobile phones and took many photos of their sister crazily. Ouch. My sister is so cute even with her head wrapped in gauze. They want to show off to others. Show off fiercely. Tell others they have a sister too. The fifth brother is younger, 1 year younger than Wei Yuxian, but he looks like a handsome guy, and his sister falls in love with him just looking at him. He is going to tell his classmates now that he has a super pretty Asian sister. Those guys will definitely be jealous. There were too many people in the ward, and no matter how careful they were, they would still make noises. Wei Yuxian was disturbed by these noises and could not sleep well. She frowned, which made the whole family feel distressed. Afraid of disturbing her sleep, everyone decisively decided to go out and let Wei Yuxian sleep peacefully. The whole family came and went out quickly, leaving Fu Xuanyi by the bedside to take care of them. The main thing is that if you tell him to leave and he doesn't leave, you can only let him stay. Everyone went to the empty ward next door and were reluctant to leave. They thought that after Eucalyptus woke up, they could talk to her and ask her to call someone. Kylie was talking about Wei Yuxian in the room, talking about her experiences over the years, the hardships she had suffered, and how she was replaced. What he said was such a vivid image that everyone wanted to rush to Father Wei and Mother Wei and beat them up. Hateful. It's so abominable. She actually made their little princess of the Jones family suffer so much. Simply unforgivable. But then after hearing what happened to the Wei family, everyone felt extremely happy and became more and more satisfied with Fu Xuanyi. Good. Very good. Fu Xuanyi did a great job. That's what you have to do. You have to let them live in pain for the rest of their lives. After saying this, Kylie talked about Wei Yuxian's current condition, amnesia, an IQ of only 6 years old, and in need of care. When everyone heard this, they felt soft in their hearts. Grandma secretly wiped away her tears and said, "Our family is so miserable. If anyone dares to treat us badly in the future, I will not let him go." Others thought the same way. Anyone who dares to bully their little princess will have to bear the wrath of the Jones family. If Eucalyptus lacks love, then they will give her love so that she can always swim in the ocean of love and be happy and worry-free for the rest of her life. After the grandma finished speaking, she looked at her youngest son, put her hand on his, and said, "And, you have suffered too over the years. Now that Eucalyptus is back, it's time for you to cheer up." Wei Qiuan nodded and said, "I know, Mom, I will cheer up again, even if it is for the sake of Eucalyptus, I will cheer up." Okay. That's it. From now on, when you 3 brothers unite, no one can defeat our Jones family. Here, in the room, Fu Xuanyi looked at Wei Yuxian's sleeping face for a while, feeling a little sleepy himself and wanted to go to bed and sleep with Guai. But he has been running all the way here and is a little dirty. Guai will feel uncomfortable if he smells it. So he went into the bathroom to take a shower, changed into pajamas, and after making sure there was no peculiar smell on his body, he gently lifted the quilt and got into bed, holding her in his arms. The empty heart was filled again. Wei Yuxian felt a warm stove coming to her side in her sleep. She happily stretched out her hand and hugged the stove. So warm. It's so comfortable to hold. Fu Xuanyi lowered his head to see her unconscious movements, slightly raised the corners of his mouth, and left a gentle kiss on her forehead. "My beloved, go to sleep." Fu Xuanyi hugged his beloved baby, and his body that had been running around for a long time relaxed and soon fell into a deep sleep. After Wei Qiuan finished chatting with his family, he couldn't worry about his daughter, so he quietly returned to the room. As soon as he entered, he saw the 2 of them sleeping together on the bed. He felt a little complicated. He didn't want his daughter to leave him so soon, but he also wanted his daughter to be happy. He didn't stay in the room for long before he went out without disturbing the rest of the beautiful couple on the bed. I don't know how much time has passed, but Fu Xuanyi has had enough rest and it's lunchtime. Yes, it was late at night when Wei Yuxian was rescued, and it was daybreak after the operation. Not long after, Wei Yuxian also woke up. She had a very comfortable sleep, hugging the warm stove. It was so warm. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 234. She raised her hand, rubbed her eyes first, and then slowly opened her eyes. Then she saw many more people in the room. In an instant, her eyes were wide open, and she didn't know why there were so many people when she woke up. She looks so cute, everyone's hearts soften when they see her, they want to slap her hard. Wei Yuxian looked for her father in a panic. After searching for 2 seconds, she finally saw her father. She sat up, stretched out her hand toward her father, and called, "Dad." The meaning is obvious, I want a hug from my dad. Wei Qiuowen walked out of the crowd, sat down by the bed, hugged Wei Yuxian, and said, "Don't be afraid. Dad is here." He patted Wei Yuxian on the back to comfort her. Wei Yuxian instantly felt more at ease. With her father here, she was not afraid of anything. She firmly believed that his father would protect her. Wei Qiuowen said, "Eucalyptus, they are all your relatives. Dad will introduce them to you." Wei Yuxian came out of her father's arms and looked over, waiting for her father to introduce her. Wei Qiuowen also got up from the bed and introduced her one by one. "This is Grandma, this is Uncle, you already know, this is Aunt, eldest brother, second sister-in-law and their children, your little one nephews. Next, there is the second uncle, the second aunt, the third brother, the fourth sister-in-law, your other nephew, and the last one is your brother." Every time he introduced someone, Wei Yuxian would call her out obediently. Her voice was so sweet, and everyone present was so excited that they also called her after sighing. There were too many people, and Wei Yuxian couldn't remember them all at once. She could remember just a few brothers, but she could definitely remember Grandma and Dad. Dad has finished introducing them. "These are your relatives. Remember them slowly. It doesn't matter if you can't remember them now." Wei Yuxian looked at the lonely Fu Xuanyi over there and said, "Dad, there is also a handsome uncle." When Fu Xuanyi was mentioned by her alone, she immediately felt extremely good. He smiled at her and said Wei Yuxian felt shy again and turned her head to the side, not daring to look at Uncle Handsome, for fear that she would be stunned and Uncle Handsome would dislike her for being stupid. Wei Qiuowen followed her and said, "Yes, there is also a handsome uncle." After receiving her father's approval, Wei Yuxian became happy again and temporarily forgot about her shyness. She still wanted to chat with her father, but before she could speak, her stomach growled. Only then did she realize that her stomach was empty and she was so hungry. She looked at her father pitifully and said, "Dad, I'm hungry." She's acting coquettishly with her father. After all, she hadn't eaten for a long time. Wei Qiuowen had already ordered the servants at home to make some easy-to-digest food and bring it over, placing it in a thermos bucket, waiting for her to wake up. Wei Qiuowen stood up the table on the hospital bed with his own hands, then placed the thermos bucket on it, opened it, and let Wei Yuxian sit on the bed and eat. What's in the thermos bucket is porridge, Wei Yuxian's favorite food, Fu Xuanyi told Wei Qiuowen. Wei Yuxian smelled the fragrant porridge, her appetite was whetted, she picked up the spoon and started eating. The temperature of the porridge was just right and it was cooked very soft. She could swallow it without chewing much. It was easy to digest and tasted very good. She ate with satisfaction and a smile on her face. After taking 2 bites, she turned the spoon and said, "Dad, eat it too." Wei Qiuowen smiled with doting on his face and said, "Dad is not hungry. Dad just ate." These are all eucalyptus. Wei Yuxian turned to see Fu Xuanyi and said, Uncle Handsome eats it too. Fu Xuanyi also had a doting look on his face and said, I ate it too. Wei Yuxian had no choice but to enjoy the delicious food by herself and fill her stomach. Wei Yuxian stayed in the hospital for several days and was under observation for several days. When her condition was relatively stable, the doctor said she could be discharged. On the day she was discharged from the hospital, Wei Yuxian was also very happy. She could finally go home. She still doesn't know what her parents look like. Her father told her that the family was very big and she had everything she wanted, so she had been looking forward to being discharged from the hospital and seeing what the family looked like. On the day she was discharged from the hospital, everyone in the Jones family came as usual to welcome their little princess home, and the company and other things were put aside for the time being. How could the company's affairs be as important as their little princess? So the whole family was discharged from the hospital in such a majestic manner that people around them couldn't help but look at them a few more times. Wei Yuxian kept holding her father's arm, with Fu Xuanyi on the other side. She quietly reached out and tapped Fu Xuanyi's hand. Fu Xuanyi turned to look at her and asked, What's wrong, my dear? Wei Yuxian's whole body was pressed against her father's body, only her little hands were stretched out a little, and she said, Han Xiao said she wanted to hold hands with the handsome uncle. There was no reason why Fu Xuanyi should not respond. He took her hand with his big hand and doted on her in his palm. Okay, let's take it, he said. Wei Yuxian looked at the two people holding hands together, and suddenly felt that the scene was familiar. She seemed to have seen it somewhere before, but after thinking for a while, she couldn't remember where she had seen it before. But she was in a good mood when she held her handsome uncle's hand. His handsome uncle's hand was warm and big, even bigger than her father's hand. She liked holding hands with his handsome uncle. After getting in the car, Wei Yuxian was still reluctant to let go of Fu Xuanyi. She glanced at Fu Xuanyi from time to time to make sure that he was still around, so that she could chat with her father with peace of mind. She is like a little chatterbox, with many questions to ask and many wild ideas. Wei Qiuwen didn't find her annoying at all. He answered every question she asked seriously and even encouraged her to talk more. Fu Xuanyi listened to her voice and felt very satisfied. In the car were not only Wei Qiuwen and Fu Xuanyi, but also other relatives, such as Grandma. Grandma watched them chatting for a while, and then joined in, talking to Wei Yuxian and getting closer to her granddaughter. Wei Yuxian could feel the love her relatives had for her, so she was very willing to talk to them. Her little mouth never stopped, and the smile on her face never stopped. Fu Xuanyi thoughtfully poured her a glass of warm water and asked her to drink it to moisten her throat before speaking, but not to damage her throat. Wei Yuxian took the water and said sweetly, "Thank you, handsome uncle." Fu Xuanyi is still a little uncomfortable hearing this title. He wants to be called brother. He said, "I am not a handsome uncle." Wei Yuxian's eyes widened and she asked, "Then who are you? Where is my handsome uncle?" Fu Xuanyi paused and said, "I am your handsome uncle. Darling, can you please change your name?" Wei Yuxian still had her eyes wide open, looking at him doubtfully, asking with her eyes, "What should I be called?" Fu Xuanyi resisted the desire to pinch her face and said, "Call brother Xian." After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 235. Wei Yuxian shook her head like a rattle and shouted, "Uncle Xian." Fu Xuanyi. Others in the car also shook their heads secretly, silently paying attention to their movements, wanting to see if Fu Xuanyi could successfully change his words. "No, it's brother Xian," he corrected her. Wei Yuxian refused to listen and insisted on her own idea, shouting, "Uncle Xian." "It's brother Xian," Fu Xuanyi corrected her again. Wei Yuxian still didn't listen, so she shouted, "Uncle Xian." Fu Xuanyi. He gave up. Guai Guai refused to change his words, and he didn't know how long she would use this title. Then let's call you Uncle Asian. He looked at Wei Yuxian helplessly, reached out and touched her hair, his eyes full of doting. Wei Yuxian was so happy that she called out again, Uncle Asian. Yes, Fu Xuanyi responded to her. Wei Yuxian turned around and started chatting with him, asking some childish questions that only a proper child would ask. But Fu Xuanyi was not impatient at all. He held his obedient hand and answered her questions one by one. Guai Guai is finally not so shy anymore. This is a big improvement. I will give you more guidance in the future. The car unknowingly drove into the Jones family's property. This manor covered a large area and could not be seen to the end. After driving for a few minutes, an ancient castle appeared in front of Wei Yuxian. She no longer even thought about chatting with Fu Xuanyi, she just looked at the castle. Her eyes were full of stars, and she looked at the castle in front of her with disbelief on her face. She happily shook her father's arm and said, "Dad. It's a castle from a fairy tale. What a beautiful castle. Eucalyptus, this is our home. How about living with Dad in a beautiful castle from now on?" Wei Qiuowen said. Wei Yuxian nodded several times and said, "Yeah. I want to live in the castle with my father, and I also want to live in the castle with Uncle Xian." She turned around and asked, "Uncle Xian wants to live with Gugu in the castle?" Of course, Fu Xuanyi replied under her expectant gaze. "Yeah," Wei Yuxian cheered happily. "Grandma also lives in the castle. Do you want to live with Grandma?" Grandma also said something at the right time. Wei Yuxian nodded and said, "Yes. I want to live with my aunt, uncle, and brother. Our whole family lives in the castle." Her words made everyone in the car laugh, and everyone looked at her with strange eyes. The car finally arrived in front of the castle. Wei Yuxian was led out of the car by her father. When she got out of the car, she went to find Fu Xuanyi's hand and wanted to hold his hand while walking. Fu Xuanyi was naturally satisfied with her. He held her smaller hand in his palm, giving her a sense of security. Wei Yuxian held her father's hand and Fu Xuanyi's hand at the same time. Not to mention how happy she was, the smile on her face never faded. She looked at the big castle with curiosity. It was exactly like the one on TV. So beautiful. She asked in disbelief, "Dad, can we really live in it from now on?" Wei Qiuowen nodded and confirmed, "Yes, she is a little princess, so of course she has to live in the castle." "Then let's go in quickly, I want to see what it's like inside." After saying that, she pulled Wei Qiuowen and Fu Xuanyi ahead. Fu Xuanyi and Wei Qiuowen quickened their pace to catch up with her and told her to walk slower and not to be in a hurry. How could Wei Yuxian not be anxious? This was the first time she had seen such a big castle. Moreover, she will live in such a big castle in the future. Dad just said that she is a little princess, so she has to live in the castle. Little princess, she is a little princess. A large family entered the castle. Inside, the servants had already received the news. Seeing that it was almost time, they came to the door to welcome their masters home. As soon as Wei Yuxian entered, she heard the neat voices of the servants, "Welcome Miss Guangxi home." She had never seen such a battle before, and she felt that such a scene looked very much like something that could only be seen on TV. For a moment, she really felt like a little princess. Wei Qiuowen walked in with the dumbfounded Wei Yuxian, and said as he walked, "Can Daddy show you your room?" "Okay," Wei Yuxian said happily, her face full of anticipation. She imagined in her mind what her room looked like. Would it be the same as the one on TV, a princess's room? Her room is on the second floor. Wei Qiuowen has already asked the maid to clean it up. The interior is also decorated like a princess room. The 6-year-old Eucalyptus will probably like it very much. Wei Yuxian almost jumped all the way up. After taking 2 steps, she had to look at Fu Xuanyi, urging him with her eyes to follow her and not to fall behind. Fu Xuanyi followed her footsteps, looked at her happy back, and couldn't help but curl up the corners of his mouth. Opening the door to the room, Wei Yuxian didn't bother to hold her father and Fu Xuanyi. She ran in first. As soon as she entered, she was stunned by the scene in front of her. Wow! What a beautiful room! Everything is pink, and there are lots and lots of dolls. Wei Yuxian rushed to the bedside excitedly, threw herself on the bed, stretched out her hand, and hugged several dolls. She kicked off her shoes randomly, climbed onto the bed, and hugged the baby full of her. Wow! There are so many dolls. I love them so much, she said excitedly and buried her face in the doll. The dolls were made of the best materials, and the fabric was extremely soft. It was very comfortable to hold, and it was extremely comfortable to rub your face against it. Wei Yuxian refused to let go of her arms, and she just felt like she was wandering in a sea of happiness. Wei Qiuowen sat down by the bed with a smile on his face and said, "As long as you like it, Daddy is afraid that he won't like it." Wei Yuxian raised her head from the doll, her eyes crinkled with laughter, and her tone was pleasant, and she said, "I like it very much. I like the doll and I also like the room." "Thank you, Dad." Behind him, Kylie, who followed up, took credit and said, "Eucalyptus, the doll in your hand was bought by my brother." Wei Yuxian lowered her head to look at the dolls in her hands. There were many, many of them. She didn't know which one her elder brother was talking about, but that didn't stop her from thanking him. She said in a sweet voice, "Thank you, big brother." After hearing this, Kylie grinned from the corners of his mouth to his temples. What a joy! The other people who bought the doll for Wei Yuxian also quickly stood up and said, "Sister, I bought that doll." "Eucalyptus, the doll behind you was bought by your aunt. And the one on the table was bought by me." Wei Yuxian thanked everyone one by one, and everyone's faces showed the same smile as Kylie's. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 236. After staying in the room for a while, Wei Yuxian had enough appreciation and happiness, so she followed everyone downstairs. Wei Qiuowen turned on the TV like a child, put the remote control in Wei Yuxian's hand, and said, "Let's see what TV we want to watch." Wei Yuxian played one channel after another. She played several of them but didn't like them. She didn't stop until she put on a cartoon and started watching them intently. Wei Qiuowen saw that she was looking attentively and said, "You can watch it here by yourself, Daddy, okay?" Wei Yuxian nodded toward her father and said thoughtfully, "Dad, go ahead. It will be nice if Uncle Xian is with you." After saying that, she turned to look at Fu Xuanyi beside her, as if asking with her big eyes, "Uncle Xian will accompany you, right?" Fu Xuanyi said and said, "I will always be by Guiguai's side." The smile on Wei Yuxian's face became even brighter, and her eyes were crinkled with laughter. Wei Qiuowen safely handed over Wei Yuxian to Fu Xuanyi and followed Hebrew to the study. They are mainly discussing how to deal with this woman Ding Nana. It's been a while since they caught this woman, but they haven't had much time recently, so they've been idle dealing with Ding Nana's affairs. Ding Nana knew that she must have no chance of survival, so she tried every possible means to commit suicide and take her own life. But how could the Jones family be willing to let her die easily? Fu Xuanyi would not allow her to die so easily. Although Ding Nana has not been severely tortured in the past few days, a little bit of it every day is enough for her to eat a pot. And the child in her belly was gone when she frightened herself. Back here, Wei Yuxian was sitting on the sofa watching cartoons with Fu Xuanyi, holding Fu Xuanyi's hand with one hand and not letting go. Fu Xuanyi couldn't stand these things and thought they were childish, but Wei Yuxian beside him watched them with great interest, so he didn't find them annoying anymore. Then just stay with him and watch obediently. Just as Wei Yuxian was watching with great interest, a few more people quietly sat down on the sofa in the living room, including Wei Yuxian's brothers. The second brother and sister-in-law's family are here, and the fourth brother's family are also here. They want to spend more time with Wei Yuxian and see Duo, this sister. Several people felt unhappy when they saw Fu Xuanyi holding his sister's hand. None of them had ever held their sister's little hand, so why could Fu Xuanyi hold her sister's hand every day? The brothers felt uncomfortable, and they also felt uncomfortable looking at Fu Xuanyi. Carrie gave his fifth brother Donald a look and asked him to go over and compete for his favor. Donald was a little frightened when he saw Fu Xuanyi's eyes. He didn't dare to go over and shook his head at his elder brother. "Brother, it's not that I don't want to, it's that I don't dare." Kylie glared at him with hatred, and sighed deeply in his heart. "This is how to do? You can't let Fu Xuanyi occupy your sister all the time, right?" "No. Absolutely not. Not even if he is my sister's husband." So Kylie gave the fourth brother another look and asked him to come. As a result, the fourth brother did not dare. He shook his head, hugged his wife's arm tightly, and pretended to comfort the child. After coaxing and coaxing, the sleeping child suddenly woke up and started crying. This cry diverted the attention of everyone in the living room to the crying child. The fourth brother hurriedly went to coax the child, and the fourth sister-in-law also tried to coax him, but couldn't do it well. Wei Yuxian heard the cry and looked over curiously. She didn't know why, but when she saw this child, she felt very kind. "Ori, stop crying, dear, Dad didn't mean to wake you up." The fourth brother clumsily coaxed his child. His child was called Ule, and the second brother's child was called Andy. When this little guy heard Ule cry, he was woken up and started crying with Ule. The second brother and second sister-in-law also started to coax the children in a hurry, patting their backs and whispering coaxing words. Wei Yuxian looked at Ule and then at Andy. The two little guys were crying miserably. She suddenly stretched out her hand and said to the second brother who was closer to her, "Second brother, let me hug him." How dare the second brother and second sister-in-law hand over the child to her, for fear that the child would make a fuss and make her cry too. The second brother said, "Forget it, the second brother will be able to coax him soon. You watch TV." Wei Yuxian shook her head, but insisted on reaching out her hand and said, "Second brother, I can coax the baby well, believe me." The second brother and second sister-in-law were a little suspicious, but seeing Wei Yuxian's serious face, they didn't know why, so they handed the child over and put it in her hands. As soon as Wei Yuxian took the child, her body seemed to have a muscle reaction, and she naturally knew how to comfort the child. "Baby, be good, don't cry, don't cry." She used to coax Shishi and Zizi a lot, and she could do it right every time, and she could coax the children well in less than 2 minutes. This time, it was the same. She only coaxed him for a minute before Andy calmed down, his crying turned into laughter, and he stretched out his hand to grab Wei Yuxian's hair. Wei Yuxian coaxed the child, put the child on her lap, and reached out to her fourth brother. The fourth brother quickly put Ula on her hand and looked at her expectantly, hoping that she could coax the child quickly. This little guy won't stop crying once he starts crying, and they often have to coax him for a long time before he can be coaxed properly. When Ori came into Wei Yuxian's hands, he turned into a good baby. He stopped crying after a while and reached out to catch Wei Yuxian like Andy. Wei Yuxian held a child in one hand and looked from side to side, the corners of her mouth curling up involuntarily. She didn't know why, but she felt very good looking at these two children. She lowered her head gently, kissed each of the two babies on their faces, and said, "The babies smell so good, I like them." The second brother and others looked at her in surprise, thinking she was very powerful. The second brother said, "Eucalyptus, you are so awesome," and he actually stopped crying so quickly. The fourth brother was also surprised and said, "Yes, oh Yuli, this little guy is very difficult to coax. He cries for a long time every time, but you can coax him back so quickly." The second sister-in-law and the fourth sister-in-law hurriedly asked for advice. "Eucalyptus, can you tell me how you coax them? Can you teach us?" Wei Yuxian looked at them, her face full of confusion, and said, "The purpose of Eucalyptus is to stop the baby from crying, and the baby will stop crying." Only the only insider present, Fu Xuanyi, knew why Wei Yuxian was able to coax the child so quickly. Because in the past, Shishi and Zhizi were quickly coaxed by her. Maybe it's his obedience that makes him naturally popular with children. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 237. Speaking of children, Shishi and Zhizi haven't seen their mother for a while. He told his mother a few days ago about Wei Yuxian's current condition, which included amnesia and an IQ of only 6 years old. Fu's mother looked distressed and asked when she would get better. Fu Xuanyi's answer was that he didn't know. The doctor also said he didn't know, it was an unknown. "Maybe my memory will be restored tomorrow, or maybe it will take 1.5 years. At the company, he asked his father to help take care of her for a while longer. He would also stay in country E with Wei Yuxian, waiting for her to regain her memory. Of course, Fu's father had no problem. He agreed with Fu Xuanyi's approach. Isn't it just to help look after the company? What's so difficult about it? Although he is an old man, he is still young, so he can just stretch his muscles and bones. As for Shishi and Zhizi, they were left to the care of their mother and nanny. Guai is also a child now, so how can he take care of the child? But now, Fu Xuanyi's mind changed. He decided to let his mother bring the 2 children over and take care of them with Guai. Seeing how much Guai likes the 2 children now, he will definitely be very happy when he meets Shishi and Zhizi. Maybe it can stimulate her brain and help her regain her memory sooner. Thinking like this, Fu Xuanyi said, "Hey, darling, I'll go over there and make a call. I'll be back soon." Wei Yuxian put all her thoughts on her 2 children now and had no time to care about where Fu Xuanyi was going. She nodded yet and lowered her head to see the children again. The baby is so cute. The face is fleshy, like delicious jelly. Fu Xuanyi got up, walked to a corner, took out his mobile phone and called his mother. It took a while before the phone was picked up. Fu's mother's voice was a little nervous. "What's wrong? Xian, did something happen to Yuxian? Or has Yuxian recovered her memory?" "No, Mom," Fu Xuanyi said, "nothing happened to me, and I haven't recovered my memory. I just want you to bring Shishi and Zhizi over." "Why did you suddenly think of taking Shishi to the past? Can Yuxian take care of it? Guai likes children very much now. With you and the nanny, I believe it can be done. Maybe it can help her regain her memory quickly." Fu's mother thought for a moment and said, "Okay, then I'll make some preparations and take people there now. I hope the 2 little guys can help Yuxian regain her memory soon." "Well, thank you for your hard work. It's okay. I also want Yuxian to get better soon, but she will be a little tired. I'll wait for you and let someone pick you up when the time comes." After hanging up the phone, Fu Xuanyi put the phone back into his pocket, turned around, walked back to the sofa, and sat down next to Wei Yuxian again. He asked, "Good boy, do you like babies?" Wei Yuxian was teasing the 2 babies tirelessly, making the 2 babies giggle. She said happily, "I like it. The baby is so cute. I like it very much. Then, Brother Xian will give you a surprise tomorrow." Wei Yuxian had already begun to look forward to it, and said with shining eyes, "Thank you, Uncle Asian. I also like Uncle Asian." When Fu Xuanyi heard this title, he could only feel a hint of helplessness on his face, and looked at her lovingly. "You can't change this name, can you?" Wei Yuxian kissed the two babies' faces a few more times, looked at their soft faces, swallowed, and looked up at Kylie. He said pitifully, "Brother, I want to eat jelly." Looking at the baby's soft little face, she really couldn't bear it anymore. She wanted to eat so much. Kylie laughed a few times, and saw why she wanted to eat jelly, and said, "Okay, big brother will give you jelly, wait a moment, the jelly will be here soon." After saying that, he waved to a servant to prepare the jelly. After a while, the servant pushed a dining cart over, with many portions of pudding on it. The colors were different, and they looked very delicious. Wei Yuxian's eyes widened. Her eyes would move wherever the pudding went. Until the dining cart was pushed to the table, and the servants took down the puddings one by one and placed them in front of the master. Wei Yuxian ordered a pink pudding, which was tender and tempting to look at. The others also had a piece of pudding, and everyone picked up their spoons to enjoy the afternoon dessert. Wei Yuxian was holding her own pink pudding, but looking at other people's puddings, she felt that other people's puddings were also delicious. "I also want to eat other people's pudding." The one in Fu Xuanyi's hand was yellow, with a layer of syrup drizzled on it, and it looked very delicious. Wei Yuxian couldn't help but look at it a few more times. She scooped up a mouthful of pudding and put it in her mouth. The sweet taste burst out in her mouth immediately. She closed her eyes happily and enjoyed it. "It's delicious." She scooped up another spoonful, put it to Fu Xuanyi's mouth, and said, "Uncle Xian, eat it too." She wanted to share the strawberry-flavored pudding with Uncle Xian. Her pudding is different from Uncle Xian's. Uncle Xian must not know how delicious strawberry pudding is. Fu Xuanyi naturally would not refuse her. He opened his mouth and ate the strawberry pudding. Under Wei Yuxian's expectant eyes, he said, "It's delicious." Wei Yuxian was happy, even happier than eating it herself, and said, "I also want to eat Uncle Xian's pudding." Fu Xuanyi also started to feed her pudding, and most of the whole pudding went into Wei Yuxian's stomach. Kylie and others watched their actions, hoping to make them pay attention to the occasion and not do such a thing in public. There are quite a few singles here. The second brother, second sister-in-law, and fourth brother and fourth sister-in-law were not affected, and even imitated them, feeding each other, and looking at each other's eyes. It was full of affection. Oh! Carrie, Basil, and Donald all covered their eyes with their hands to show that they couldn't see. Singles like them shouldn't stay here. They should stay under the car. After finishing the pudding, Wei Yuxian's stomach was full. She returned the two children to her second and fourth brothers, took Fu Xuanyi's hand and said, "Uncle Xian, let's go for a walk, we are so full." "Let's go." Fu Xuanyi led her out and walked around the Jones family's castle. Kylie and the others did not hesitate and naturally followed. Not only that, but Grandma and the eldest and second aunts also followed. The family was quite large, except for the three brothers who were still discussing how to deal with Ding Nana in the study. Fu Xuanyi also sent Lu Chengxiao to discuss how to punish her in order to relieve their hatred. If it hadn't been for this woman, why would Guai Guai have suffered like this? Why do you lose your memory? Therefore, they will definitely not let Ding Nana go. From now on, everyone who bullies Wei Yuxian will have to bear the wrath of the Fu family and the Jones family. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 238. That night, Wei Yuxian checked into the beautiful princess room. After washing herself in the bathroom, She lay down on the big soft bed and rolled around a few times, rolling into a pile of dolls. Stretch out your hand and grab it casually, and you will find a doll in one hand. It is soft and comfortable to hold in your arms. She rolled on the bed for a while, and when she was happy enough, she looked at her father beside the bed and asked, "Do you want to sleep with me?" She still has the mentality of a 6-year-old child and feels that sleeping with her father is okay, so she asked this question. Wei Yuxian is a child now, but Wei Qiuowen is not. He reached out and touched Wei Yuxian's head and said, "When you grow up, you have to sleep by yourself. Dad will watch you sleep, okay?" Wei Yuxian thought for a while and felt that what her father said made sense, so she said, "He is a big boy now, he has to sleep by himself." Wei Qiuowen chuckled and said, "Hurry up and close your eyes and go to sleep. Dad is by your side. Wait until you fall asleep before leaving. Okay. Good night, Dad." She unconsciously spoke with a hint of coquettishness. She closed her eyes, there was still a smile on her lips, and she slept peacefully. Wei Qiuowen turned off the lights for her, leaving only a bedside lamp, which emitted a dim, warm yellow light, creating an excellent sleeping environment. Wei Yuxian spent the whole day playing at home, and all her energy was exhausted. After a while, she breathed evenly and fell into sleep. When Wei Qiuowen saw this, he called out softly, "Eucalyptus." She didn't get a response. After confirming that the person was asleep, she didn't leave immediately. Instead, she stayed in the room for a while, looked at the person quietly for a while, then raised her hand and kissed the back of it, stood up and left. It had been several days since he had known his daughter, but Wei Qiuowen still felt that he couldn't get enough of her and wanted to look at his daughter every moment. He has missed so much over the years, more than 20 years, what should he do to make up for his little treasure? How should he compensate the little baby for the hardships she has endured since she was a child? What's even more regrettable is that Xia, his beloved Xia, has not seen her grow up yet. Wei Qiuowen left the room in a daze, remembering that Lin Xia was here. As soon as he went out, he met Fu Xuanyi. He looked like he wanted to ask him something. He put aside his sadness in advance, looked at Fu Xuanyi and asked, "Why aren't you sleeping yet?" "Did you sleep well?" he asked. Asleep, sleeping soundly. Wei Qiuowen thought of his daughter sleeping soundly, and his mood temporarily improved. Fu Xuanyi felt relieved and said, "Father-in-law, go to bed early too." After saying that, he turned around and entered his room. His room was right next to Wei Yuxian's. He had wanted to go in just now to put her to sleep, but the little guy was blushing and shy and wouldn't let him in, so he could only wait outside. I don't know why the little guy is so shy and won't let him watch her sleep. Wei Qiuowen returned to his room. His room was not very big, but there were many things in it, most of which belonged to him and Lin Xia. On the walls of the room, there are many paintings by Lin Xia, all painted by him himself, with various expressions, and each one is extremely exquisite. He didn't know how to draw before. After returning to Joan's house, he started to learn to draw. He learned some simple ones at first. After he finished learning, every painting he painted was of Lin Xia. In the painting, she is always young and beautiful, and her life is frozen at her most beautiful age. There was a separate table in the room. On the table was a photo of Lin Xia. She was smiling and looked very similar to Wei Yuxian. Just by looking at their faces, one could tell that Wei Yuxian was their biological child. Wei Qiuowen sat down at the table, picked up Lin Xia's photo, and said, "Xia, her condition is much better. She has moved back. I will take good care of her. You can rest in peace in heaven. I also have a husband, Fu Xuanyi from Kyoto. His status is very high. No one in Kyoto dares to bully our family. Also, we are now grandparents, and we have 2 children now. When there is a chance in the future, let them come and meet you." Wei Qiuowen spoke to Lin Xia with a gentle expression. Over the years, he would talk to Lin Xia every night, tell her what he had done that day, and tell her how much he missed her. His love for Lin Xia has not faded a bit after so many years. When he was young, his family members advised him to find another one, but he only had Lin Xia in his heart, and he could no longer pretend to be anyone else but her. Fortunately, he didn't find anyone else. Otherwise, how would he explain to Eucalyptus now? The next day, Wei Yuxian slept comfortably. The wound on her head no longer hurt, but it was still wrapped in gauze. When she saw it in the mirror, she would poke it out of curiosity. After washing herself independently, Wei Yuxian felt great that she had learned to brush her teeth by herself. Dad will definitely praise her if he finds out. After trotting out of the room, Wei Yuxian came to the door of Fu Xuanyi's room with a smile on her face, raised her hand and knocked on the door. Uncle Axian. Uncle Axian. Has Uncle Axian gotten up? As soon as he finished speaking, the door to the room was opened, and Fu Xuanyi, dressed in home clothes, walked out and hugged him as soon as he came out. His voice was a little hoarse, and he asked, "You wake up so early? Have you slept enough?" Wei Yuxian was hugged, and all she could smell was his good smell. Her face slowly turned red again, and she said, "Sleep, I've had enough sleep. Early in the morning, I was hugged by Uncle Xian. It was so warm." Wei Yuxian also carefully raised her hand, hugged Fu Xuanyi, and said, "Good morning, Uncle Xian." "Good morning, dear, did you miss me?" he asked bluntly. Wei Yuxian was embarrassed to answer, so she closed her mouth tightly in his arms and tensed up a little, for fear that she would say it out loud. How could Fu Xuanyi not know whether she thought about him? She must have thought about him, but was too embarrassed to say it. He's so obedient, why is he still so shy even after becoming a little man? Weirdly cute. As for why Wei Yuxian is shy? Of course, I like Fu Xuanyi. Even the little Wei Yuxian can't help but be tempted when she sees the handsome Fu Xuanyi. It's just that she is still too young to marry Uncle Axian, and she can only marry Uncle Axian when she grows up. Fu Xuanyi hugged the person for a while and then let him go. If he didn't let go, the little guy in his arms would become as stiff as a stone man. He lowered his head and put his hand on her fair face, saying, "I really want to be a good boy. Can I tell a story to my good boy tonight?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 239. Wei Yuxian looked into his eyes, her little heart beating faster for some reason, and her brain became hot, so she agreed and said Fu Xuanyi smiled with satisfaction, touched her face and said, "Good boy, go down and have breakfast." He took Wei Yuxian's hand, led the dazed person downstairs, and sat down at the dining table. At the dining table, grandma, father, and others all sat down. The fifth brother, Donald, was still missing, but after a while, everyone came down in a hurry. While eating breakfast, Wei Qiuowen asked, "Did you sleep well last night?" Wei Yuxian nodded, "I slept very well, dreaming about many dolls, and the dolls even talked to me." Everyone couldn't help laughing when they heard her innocent words. Kylie also asked her, "What did the doll say to you?" After asking, everyone else looked at Wei Yuxian curiously, wanting to hear what other childlike words she could say. But Wei Yuxian suddenly became shy, lowered her head to eat, and said, "Don't tell me." In her dream, she told the dolls that Uncle Axian was so handsome and that she would marry Uncle Axian when she grew up. The dolls were all very happy and said they were going to attend their wedding. Shy little Wei Yuxian didn't dare to say it. The less she said anything, the more curious everyone became. Third brother Basil said, "Can you tell me a little bit?" Wei Yuxian covered her mouth, shook her head with her eyes wide open, and the word no was written all over her body. This scene made everyone present look cute. I thought, how could their eucalyptus be so cute? They were so soft-hearted that they no longer pressed her. Wei Qiuan gave her a dumpling and said, "If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. Eat a dumpling." Wei Yuxian breathed a sigh of relief, put down her hands, said thank you, Dad, then picked up the dumplings and stuffed them into her mouth. She stuffed her mouth full and her cheeks bulged. This dumpling was a bit big. Normally it would take 3 bites to finish, but Wei Yuxian stuffed it all into her mouth in one mouthful and instantly became like a hamster. Oh my old swan! How come our eucalyptus is so cute? Everyone in the Jones family looked at Wei Yuxian with stars in their eyes. Such a cute eucalyptus is the little princess of their Jones family. It belongs to the Jones family, not anyone else's. I am so proud to be a member of the Jones family. I wish I could tell others now that the Jones family has such a cute and beautiful little princess. Unfortunately, it's not possible yet. Eucalyptus has not recovered her memory yet. They will have to wait until Eucalyptus recovers her memory before they can announce her identity. Wei Yuxian's belly was full after being fed by her family. After eating, she sat on the sofa for a while before she recovered and started watching cartoons again. After she sat down, several family members sat down one after another, but some people were not so lucky because they had to go to the company to work. For example, the eldest uncle, second uncle, and several older brothers all have to go to the company. Originally, the family company had to be busy. In the past few days, they had defeated their competitor Barrett, which made them even more busy. Several people said goodbye to Wei Yuxian with a sad face and went to work in the company with unhappy faces. Wei Qiuan is also preparing to join the family company to help out, but he has to accompany Wei Yuxian now and will go there after a while. In the past, he didn't care about the company. He would paint at home every day and live longing for his wife and children. But it doesn't work now. He has a baby, so he has to give him more protection. When he is 100 years old in the future, his life will be better. The status of the Jones family in Country E is now unmatched by anyone, and the company's business scope is also quite wide. Even with so many people managing the company together, it is still a little busy. Moreover, the atmosphere within their family is very harmonious and family-like, and they will not fight to the death for that position. It is the harmony of descendants that many big families cannot envy. Wei Yuxian watched TV at home for a while. Her stomach felt better and her mind became more active. She wanted to see how big the castle was. Yesterday they just took a brief walk, they didn't go very far and she didn't see anything. Now that she is free, she wants to be a little explorer and explore her home. Wei Qiuan and others would naturally grant her this little wish. They also changed her clothes, put on a cute yellow fisherman's hat, carried a small satchel on her body, and set off. Wei Yuxian was very motivated and full of energy. She held the bags of her satchel with both hands and walked at the front. She was in a good mood as she walked and jumped. She trotted forward for a while, stopped, looked back at the person behind her, put her hands to her mouth, and shouted, "Dad! Uncle Axian! Follow us quickly!" Wei Qiuan and Fu Xuanyi looked at each other, stepped a little faster, and caught up with her. Grandma also came out with her, but she was old and couldn't walk so fast. She sat on a sightseeing car and watched Wei Yuxian walk with a smile on her face. Wei Yuxian was really like a little explorer. Whenever she saw anything new in the manor, she would go up and take a closer look. She would look at each item for a while and ask her father what it was. After Wei Qiuan answered, her frown suddenly relaxed, and she didn't know if she understood. If she had a magnifying glass in her hand at this moment, it would probably be more vivid. Wei Yuxian walked for more than an hour. When she was thirsty, She took out a water glass from her bag and took a sip of water. When she was hungry, she took out a small biscuit to eat to satisfy her hunger, and then continued her adventure. One morning, Wei Yuxian seemed not to be tired. She walked half of the manor and studied a lot of plants and stones. The harvest was huge. Tired of walking at noon, they took the car back to the castle for dinner. After eating, Wei Yuxian was very tired. She took a bath and changed into comfortable pajamas, then lay down on the bed and fell asleep. At this moment, a plane landed at an airport in country. Yifu's mother took Shishi, Zizi, and several nannies out of the car. Fu Xuanyi came to pick her up in person, took Zizi from the nanny's hand, and looked at his little princess lovingly. I haven't seen him for a few days and miss his little princess. If Guigui saw it, I'm afraid he would be very happy. Mom, thank you for your hard work, Fu Xuanyi said. Fu's mother shook her head and said, it's nothing hard. Let's get in the car quickly. I want to see Yuxian as soon as possible to see how she is doing. She always felt uneasy when she couldn't see Yuxian these days, and she needed to see someone to feel at ease. Fu Xuanyi didn't say any more nonsense, took his mother and child into the car, and headed to the Jones family manor. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 240. When Fu Xuanyi returned to the manor with his mother and child, Wei Yuxian was still taking a nap, lying on a comfortable bed, her face flushed from sleep. Fu's mother said hello to the Jones family, got to know each other, and then handed over the two children to them. Fu's father and Fu's mother only have some friendship with Hebrew and not with the rest of the Jones family, but from now on, the relationship between their two families will become closer. Grandma held the little princess Zizi in her arms and lowered her head to tease her. Others gathered around and went to see Gigi. Shishi's place was much colder, with only Donald holding him. This was because he couldn't win over his sisters-in-law, so he was squeezed to Shishi's side. Seeing this scene, Fu's mother felt helpless and came to Shishi's side to comfort the little guy. She also knew why Zizi was so popular. Who made the Jones family not have a little princess for so many years? It is strange to say that all the children born in the Jones family in recent years are boys, and they have been unable to get a girl despite their desperate efforts. Fortunately, Yuxian recognized her ancestor and returned to the clan, and the Jones family finally had a little princess. And Yuxian gave birth to a little princess, Zizi, who was certainly very rare among the Jones family. Zizi, I am the second aunt. Come and meet the second aunt. Zizi, I am your great-grandmother, and your great-grandmother is holding you. You must remember your great-grandmother's appearance in the future. Xiao Zizi, I am Grandpa, your mother's father. Why is our little Zizi so beautiful? Several people were teasing Zizi, poking her little cheeks, or kissing her face. They never got tired of watching her, just like they did when they watched Wei Yuxian. Fu's mother walked to Fu Xuanyi and said, "Where is Yuxian? I want to see her." She hadn't seen Yuxian for several days and missed her too much. She didn't know how she was doing or what she would be like now that her IQ had shrunk. Still sleeping, Fu Xuanyi said. "Take me to take a look." "I won't make any noise, Mother," Fu said. "Even if Yuxian is sleeping, she can't wait to see her." Fu Xuanyi glanced at Wei Qiuan, who nodded slightly. Then he said okay and took his mother upstairs. Arriving at the door of the room, he opened the door softly and walked in with his mother. As soon as she entered the door, Fu's mother couldn't help but breathe a little lighter. Looking at the pink and tender princess room, a slight smile appeared on her face. Unexpectedly, Yuxian, a little princess after becoming smaller, would like such a pink and tender color. When they get home, they might decorate their room like this. Thinking like this, Fu's mother had an idea in her mind and smiled secretly, imagining her aloof son living in such a room. That scene was really out of place. The two of them walked to the bed without making any sound. Fu's mother looked at the person she hadn't seen for many days, and the longing in her eyes almost overflowed. She sat down on the edge of the bed and looked at Wei Yuxian's sleeping red face. The smile on her lips became more obvious. The language is exquisite, she shouted in her heart. He stretched out his hand and touched Wei Yuxian's soft face. It felt so good that people wanted to touch it even after touching it once. She couldn't help but touch it a few more times, as if she were looking at her own child. Yuxian is not only the little princess of the Jones family, but also the little princess of their Fu family. In her sleep, Wei Yuxian noticed someone touching her face. The hand was warm and felt quite comfortable. She rubbed it unconsciously a few times and slept better. Fu's mother felt so soft in her heart that she almost turned into a puddle of water. After looking at people for a while, she reluctantly walked out, closed the door, and asked, "When will Yuxian wake up?" She really wanted to talk to 6-year-old Yuxian and see how cute the 6-year-old little princess was. Fu Xuanyi looked at the time and said, "It should be soon. Guai usually wakes up around this time." Fu's mother was overjoyed after hearing this and said, "Then I'll go pick up Shishi and Zhizi so that Yuxian can see them as soon as she wakes up. Even if Yuxian doesn't remember them, she will definitely like them very much." Okay, Fu Xuanyi also agreed with his mother's approach and went down with her to pick up the two children. Shishi and Zhizi are awake now. The two little guys were very happy being teased by their aunt, grandpa, and others. The smiles on their faces have not gone away yet. Holding one in each hand, Fu's mother and Fu Xuanyi entered Wei Yuxian's room again, put the two babies on the bed, and asked them to accompany Wei Yuxian. Wei Yuxian looked like she was about to wake up, and the two babies were crawling on the bed with their little buttocks twisted. Smelling the familiar scent of their mother, the two little guys' eyes lit up and they crawled faster towards their mother. Fu Xuanyi wanted to pick up the two babies and stop them from climbing on Wei Yuxian, but Fu's mother beside him stopped him. She whispered, "It's okay, Yuxian will wake up soon." Fu Xuanyi thought for a moment that Wei Yuxian had gotten enough sleep these days, and then put down his hand. On the bed, the two babies had climbed onto their mother's body. From time to time, the little one sat on her mother's arms, while Zhizi climbed up to her mother's face and reached out to touch her mother's cheeks. "Mom, Mom, Mom." The two little guys called out this name unconsciously. They had not seen their mother for several days and missed their mother very much. Wei Yuxian, who had almost had enough sleep, finally woke up. She heard two soft voices, which seemed to belong to children. This voice sounded familiar, but when she thought about it, she didn't know where she had heard these voices before. She slowly opened her eyes, and the first thing she saw was Zhizi's enlarged face. Zhizi became even happier when she saw her mother open her eyes. She moved closer to her and shouted, "Mom, Mom." Not to be outdone, she always crawled forward, calling Mom as she climbed, but Wei Yuxian, who had just woken up, was completely trapped. She opened her eyes wide and looked at the two exquisite and beautiful babies in disbelief, babies that were different from Ori and Andy. She sat up and looked down at the baby still crawling on top of her, feeling a little overwhelmed. Turning around to look at the surrounding environment, he subconsciously wanted to seek help from others. She saw Fu Xuanyi beside the bed at a glance, and immediately called out pitifully, "Uncle Ashian." Fu Xuanyi's eyes were full of smiles and he said, "Wake up, dear." When Fu's mother heard Wei Yuxian call Fu Xuanyi, she couldn't help but laugh. "Ha ha ha. What did Yuxian call this brat? Yuxian actually called this brat Uncle Ashian. How can it be so cute?" Fu's mother's heart became even softer. She stretched out her hand and pinched her face several times. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding.